Good morning, kids! Do you guys remember Paul? Paul has been going through a lot of difficult experiences lately. The Jews, they didn't like him. They wanted to kill him because Paul was teaching about that Jesus had risen again, had risen from the dead. And on top of that, remember last week, Paul had to face a shipwreck. And on top of that, now Paul, he's a prisoner. And wow, his life just seems really tough right now. How would you guys feel if you guys were Paul? I think I have this balloon here, and I think most of us would maybe feel like this if we were Paul, right? We would feel kind of sad or upset. I have this candle here, and this candle represents trials that come in our life, and this candle represents the same trials that Paul was facing. So this balloon represents us. Maybe if we're facing trials, we'll try to be strong on our own strength, and we'll try to be happy, or we'll try to just think things will be okay. But is that enough when trials come our way? Let's see what happens. Oh, yeah, I don't think it's enough when trials come our way. But I have this other balloon here. And this balloon may look the same on the outside, but it's actually very different. And Paul actually really illustrates this balloon very well. So I actually have a letter that Paul sent. So while Paul was in prison, he had some friends at the church of Philippi that would send him just encouragement and prayers. And so Paul wrote a letter back to them. So let's go ahead and find out what Paul said.
I want you to know, brothers, that even though the Jews try to stop me, everything that has happened has actually helped me tell more people the good news about Jesus. Now the guards at the palace know the gospel, and other believers have been sharing the gospel without fear. Thank you for praying for me. I know God has given me the Holy Spirit to help me. I hope I will never be afraid or embarrassed about anything. I want to be bold and honor Jesus, whether I live or I die. For me, living is Christ and dying is gain. If I live for Jesus. If I die for Jesus, I will be with him forever. No matter what happens, live your life in a way that brings honor to the gospel of Christ. Don't let anyone scare you from doing God's work. This is the work God has given you to do, not only to believe in him, but also to suffer for him.
Wow, so what was different about Paul? Paul didn't have just happiness in prison, he had joy. Can you believe that? Through all the difficult circumstances he had joy because he trusted and knew the Lord. Do you know what happens when you have joy? With joy, trials may still come your way. But let's see what will happen actually. This balloon here, remember this balloon? This balloon represents someone who has something special, just like Paul did, that would prevent you from getting burned. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Look, he's doing great. He's okay. So, yeah, like Paul, and just like this balloon, Paul knew that God was using these difficult circumstances to spread the gospel and just to help build the church. So Paul rejoiced and knew that Jesus suffered to bring salvation to the world and that believers would suffer too. However, we don't need to be afraid because we trust in the Lord. So when you trust in the Lord, it doesn't mean that trials aren't going to come your way. In fact, you may notice that maybe they'll happen more. But it means that with God, just like this balloon, you won't be burned. And therefore, you can still be happy, have joy, and rejoice in trials.